Pokemon. There are so many creatures in the series with interesting lore and facts that are cool, but can also be creepy. And to me, I believe it tends to happen with ghost and psychic type Pokemon more than any other types, and that only happened back around Gen 1 to 4. Now these days, they are a bit more tame, or at least you could say a little less creepy. Sometimes there are theories made up about a few Pokemon just for their character designs matching up with others on purpose or by chance. For example, some people assume that Gengar and Clefable are the same because they have the same design or body structure. People believe that a Clefable had passed away and his shadow is a Gengar, or that a Gengar is a corrupted Clefable. However, there are some counter theories to it, like Gengar being dark and Clefable being light, and that their evolution line is way different from others since you can only get a Gengar if you trade your Haunter, and Clefable evolves from Clefairy with the Moonstone. So even though it has its flaws, it's pretty much an interesting theory when you think about it. Even though it's not technically a theory, the lore for Kadabra that was made by Game Freak in Gen 1 had confused people when they first read the Pokedex. It reads, as the psychic boy awoke one morning, he found himself transformed in his bed into a Kadabra. For those who have read the book, they would know it as an Easter egg to a short story titled The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka in 1915. The story goes the same, but it's a bit different about a salesman who wakes up one morning realizing he's turned into an insect. The cool thing about this is that it was also written in the 1996 Pokedex book that was only a Japanese exclusive. Most of these entries that I'm reading is thanks to Dr. Lava, who has done a lot of research and got help creating these in his site. So thank you, Doctor. Another thing about the Pokedex book is that the poker card, the Korokoro's 8 of Clubs, the drawing of Kadabra waking up. They did take away the star of Kadabra later on in the series, but Emerald, Fire Red, and Sun all had different versions of the same story. I stopped watching the Pokemon anime around Gen 4 and came back around Sun and Moon, but even still I was still learning about these Pokemon, so I didn't know any about the nuance between them. Gothitelle, the final evolution of Gothita, has an interesting and pretty creepy Pokedex. For Black and White, it states that they can predict the future from the placement and movement of the stars. They can also see the trainer's lifespans. And the sequel to it adds a bit more to it by saying, when it learns its trainer's lifespan, it cries in sadness. Now there isn't anything creepy about it, it's just a bit dark because the second you get a Gothitelle, you could potentially witness it crying for you. In S.H.I.E.L.D., a criminal who was shown his fate by Gothitelle went missing the same day and was never seen again. Now that is scary because if you piss it off, who knows what will happen to you or what you will see. And in Violet, it gazes at the stars to predict the future. It acts somewhat detached because it has seen the end of all existence. Sometimes it can be a bit of both the Pokedex and the game, or some Pokemon can be creepy. In the book, Hypno is skilled at using Psychic. In a town where Hypno appears, kid disappearances start to mysteriously surge. And what makes it more creepy is in Fire Red, you have to rescue a kid that's being chased by Hypno. Another thing about Hypno is that there was a shirt that was made by a Japanese clothing company. They had a few other Pokemon themed clothings, but this one, it was very creepy when you think about it. In Japan, Hypno is called Sleeper and its Pokedex number is 97. So they made the shirt and called it Sleeper 097. But they had images of Hypno walking with two kids, as if they were hypnotized and was following it. In Ultra Sun and Moon, a mission called Haunted School, the player has to investigate a strange occurrence at the school, which are all attributed to misunderstandings or spooky Pokemon like Hypno who's creating illusions. Another mission in the same game, called The 7 Mysteries, the player must talk to a youngster on Big Wave Beach. He will tell him about a rumor about the trainer's school. Once you finish talking to the youngster and complete Hologram Trial, you visit the school at night and you will notice the music sounds different, and the area will be completely empty of anyone except a preschooler and a Drifloon next to a sign in front of the school. She will ask you to solve the 7 mysteries, but she will only offer the player 6 mysteries to solve, saying that she doesn't know anything of what the 7th mystery is. What makes it more weird is that the text is choppy, making it a bit tough to understand what she's saying. She says there is someone crying and that there is a smell of something burning, but it turns out to be a girl who is upset because her crush was taken, and the love letters that she wrote for him is being burnt up. Once you solve that mission, the little girl thanks you and says that she isn't from Alola, and that she came from a faraway place and wanted to help protect the school. But then the conversation gets cut off when the janitor appears asking you what are you doing here late at night. When you tell him you're there with a kid, he looks at you confused because he says that he didn't see a girl, only you there by yourself. With that same girl, there is a kid's notebook talking about how a new girl appeared at the school and how a wild hypno tried to kidnap her. 9 days later, it says that a wild Driftloon came to pick up the girl, but the next page was ripped out, making it more of a mystery, and then making you realize that what if that wild Driftloon next to the girl was the one that kidnapped her? In Black and White, a girl is at a bridge looking out, but when you talk to her, she vanishes. An old lady says that there used to be a girl who used to play on the bridge with her pet Abra before the bridge was made. In Black and White 2, that same girl is in a strange house, calling for her parents and her pet Abra. She also mentions how she's having an everlasting nightmare that torments her. She even talks about how she hears her father's voice telling her to come with him and to forget the lunar wing. Once you find it, you talk to the girl and she mentions how she waited for Cresselia at the bridge to give it back. It's said that the lunar wing keeps Darkrai away from them since they are the opposite of Cresselia, but it seems like the voice that was telling the kid to forget about the wing was Darkrai, and in turn, the kid passed away because she was scared. I can't remember where I heard it, but from what I remember hearing, that the father was actually trying to get his daughter to wake up. It seems like Darkrai actually used the father's voice to lure the child from forgetting the wing and follow it instead. It's also creepy when you find out that some ghost-type Pokemon came to life from those who had passed away. In Pokemon Y and Alpha Sapphire, the Pokédex says, according to old tales, these Pokemon are stumps possessed by spirits of children who died while lost in the forest. In Pokemon Black and White, the sequel, X and Y, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Sword and Shield, Yamask's entry states that each of them carries a mask that used to be its face when it was human, and sometimes looks at it and cries. They arose from the spirits of people interned in graves. Each retains memories of its former life. It wanders through ruins by night, carrying a mask that said to have been the face it had when it was still human, and when they try to search for someone who might remember their face. To me, that sounds like an old story that parents would tell their kids so they wouldn't be up late at night, or at least wandering outside. Some Pokemon are based off of yokai, like Frostless, who is based on the Yuki-onna, or Snow Woman, a female ice spirit from Japanese folklore that appears during the winter. It's said that the Yuki-onna preys upon those who are lost in the snowstorm, mostly handsome men that they lure to their home and freezes them to death by draining their life forces, or a benevolent figure who helps those who show her kindness. You could also say that she is a snow vampire by the way she drains the life out of her victims. Frostlass also does this with men or Pokemon that she likes. She freezes them and takes them to its chilly den where they become decorations. In Ultra Moon, the Pokédex states that it's said that on nights of terrible blizzards, it comes down to human settlements. If you hear it knocking at your door, do not open it. And in Arceus, a Pokemon inhabited by the soul of a woman who died bearing a grudge in the snowy mountains. Legends of Frostlass placing deathly curses on misbehaving men sends them shivers down my spine. Even though they aren't in the game, 2 scrap Pokemon was leaked back in the day. One panda that is dressed up like a Jiangshi, a Chinese vampire. The Pokemon doesn't have an official name, but people called it a Pangshi. Panda and Jiangshi mixed together. It looks cute, but since it's a reanimated corpse, rigor mortis has set in and their body is very stiff, so they only can hop around to move, holding their arms outstretched. The other Pokemon is a Kershaw. I guess you could say a voodoo doll that's made out of straws. It doesn't really have a name specifically, but you can imagine a doll with a needle right in its torso. So basically, it's a Ghost Steel type Pokemon. Let's take it back old school in Gen 1, where they made a graveyard for Pokemon who had passed away. I understand where they wanted to show what happens to Pokemon who had passed away, where their injuries were too severe that they wouldn't be able to sort of recover from the hospital, or I guess you could say the Poke Center. And with that, they also made Lavender Town. They decided to give it a creepy theme music that is used today for anything creepy. I remember there was an urban legend making its rounds in the early 2010s of how hundreds of Japanese children had ended their lives because of the music, speculating that binaural beats and high-pitched tones that only kids were able to hear gave them headaches and erratic behaviors that led to their certain deaths, with others recorded side effects including insomnia, violent behaviors, and brain hemorrhaging. It was called the Lavender Town Syndrome, or by a few other names like Lavender Town Tone, Lavender Town Conspiracy, and Lavender Town Suicides. It went even more viral when a creepypasta version of it blew up on 4chan. People added things just to make it sound more believable, like Photoshop putting images of ghosts and the Pokemon Unknown and spectrograms outputs of the music that made it spell the words "Leave Now." It also believed that the song had changed up a bit for the international release of it. Some claim that the game's director, Satoshi Tajiri, wanted to make the tone be more annoying than harmful to kids. And then there's others who claim that Nintendo was in collaboration with the Japanese government. I wanted to add in a bit of some fan theories and fan creations that I found that caught my attention the most. A really popular one is Ash from the show is in a coma after being attacked by a flock of Fearos, and how the rest of the series is just a dream. The theory also goes as far as to say that the shocks from Pikachu is actually from the doctors trying to revive him, but after a while they gave up and that's when the coma began. I guess you could say it also explains why he never really ages throughout the whole series, but there is some counter arguments about it, like the in-universe explanation that after they were knocked out by the lightning, they woke up after it and continued their journey in which strengths their bond. And the creator, Satoshi Tajiri, said that the show is more of the kids' perspective of how they see things throughout their journey and all the other adventures that they have, not to show in an alternate reality where something bad had happened immediately right in the first episode. Now, the fan creation I stumbled upon was the three Reggies: Reggie Ice, Reggie Rock, and Reggie Steel. During battle, Reggie Rock can fix itself by adding more rocks to cover up broken or chipped off pieces. Reggie Ice cloaks itself with frigid air of negative 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and if anything gets near it, it freezes up. And since its body is so cold, there's nothing that can melt its body. And with Reggie Steel, its body is harder than any kind of steel, that nothing can make a scratch on it. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because some friends asked the question of what was our favorite songs from the series, and I remembered how the Reggie's theme sounded really cool to me. But before I could actually play the song to remember, I found an interesting thumbnail with the three, but looking very completely different, like if they were dying. I then found out about Pokemon Clover, a fan game from the site 4chan, but I really won't talk much about them, just those three Reggies. So with these three new versions of the trio, I found out that they had new names for the forms and new theme song to go along with them. Reggie Rock has become Regiroid, a rock ghost type Pokemon. Its body has started to fall apart, eroded away. No matter how many times it tries to repair itself with new rocks, they all fall off, meaning that they too will end up breaking down and no longer existing after a certain time. Reggie Ice has become Reggie Melt, an ice ghost type Pokemon. Its temperature is no longer stable, and it can no longer remain as cold as it used to be. No matter how many times it tries to rebuild itself, it's in constant state of melting, and all its attempts of freezing itself back to normal just won't work. And Reggie Steel has become Reggie Rust, a steel ghost type Pokemon. Much like it implies, Reggie Steel has fallen victim to oxidation, and is slowly but surely breaking down and rusting. Unable to rebuild itself as the rust spreads and all of its injuries worsen, leading to more parts of them to break off or just become dust and fly away in the wind. The sprites for each of them shows how they are struggling to keep themselves together, but failing to do so. Looking at it is very scary. Like if you stumble upon a cave and you see one or worse, all three of them slowly walking towards you, and each of their cries sound distorted, like you could say zombies. I understand that this is a fan game, but it sounded and looked cool because these three were made to be indestructible. And yet something had to be more powerful to melt Regice. Something was able to do some serious damage to Regirock and the same to Registeel because you could see it holding its broken arm. Each are trying to stand up, or at least its form up. And even though the music for it is a little different from the official, I found a remake by Balmy Levy made the song more gloomy, low-pitched and eerie, is what made it more cool when I found it. From reading the comments from the music, people talked about how it seems like either Darkrai was able to give Regigigas a nightmare and this is what they saw, or an alternate universe where Regigigas used durable materials, making it more easy for the three to be damaged to the point where, like I said before, they're just zombies trying to survive, but will eventually succumb to their injuries and perish. And seeing them like that definitely gives a chill down my spine. Golems that were made to be indestructible, unbreakable, fall into a state where well, it's tough to explain. Just looking at it just feels weird, like an actual creepypasta. Pokemon Z had just released at the time of this writing, so there could be new Pokédex entries for some old Pokemon, or for the new Mega Evolution, so who knows what other creepy things will be added into the series. After reading all these entries and looking up some old facts about the series, I'm amazed on how they can continue to make up these new things for some Pokemon with each new game they release. I know they can't get too dark like they did back then, but they can get creative with it and still be kid friendly.